My name is Matteo, and this is my VR lap at Montreal. Alright, that was 123. Hey, where are you going? There was 123.4. As you might have seen, the lap could have been quicker as usual. I'm sure many of you will beat it during the week. I think I will too. And the temperature was 21, 22 degrees, and it was a private session this time, but it was copied from the practice session, the official practice session, so the track was pretty green, not much grip. 30, as you can see here, 35.8 liters of fuel remaining, so I started on the 40-ish liters, almost the first quarter, first third of the race. All right. Anything else? No, that should be all. All right, let's rewind to the beginning of the lap, and let's begin with the walkthrough, with the tutorial. Okay, so we're at the beginning here. We can start. This is turn 1 and turn 2, and that's called the Senna corner. And what I do here, pretty much, you follow the right side of the track, so just don't take the Formula 1 line, as you can say, which is, I've seen some people doing that in the Formula Renault 2.0, which is underpowered a lot. So the Formula 1 line goes on the left side and then cuts through the track, but you're just wasting time because you don't really need that. You have plenty of grip to do that. So keep the right, minimize the scrub and the space you're running, and use this. There's a marker here. You can see there are all the markers here on the right side. That's the 2. This is the 1. Okay, so I take as a reference this one pretty much. You will see that how close to this sign here, or even further down the line, you can brake. That much pretty much depends on your skills on the brakings and the conditions of the track. So if the track is very grippy, there's been a lot of cars, the track is cool, etc., you will see that we're gaining confidence. you can start braking much later than this. I'd say pretty much here. I would say. I mean, during some um, cool sessions and grippy sessions, I started braking that I couldn't see the corner, the mark anymore in my VR sight. So I had to be like probably from here to here, something like that. Here I'm braking much earlier because the truck is not grippy, and I'm not particularly confident right now with the car because it's heavy and I don't want to destroy the lap, etc., etc. So I braked early. So you can see that you can take this as a marker and start braking, as you can see pretty much here. Oh, I forgot. I'm using the baseline setup, which from this season, 2019 season 3, and I'm very honored of saying that is my own baseline, the setup that I've done uh, before the first season, and basically during week 13 when this car came out, and then that I took it with me and improved during the first 2 years, and this year I'm really happy to say that it's become the baseline, which I believe it's much better than the iRacing's baseline, much safer, and all of that. And you can also find high downforce, medium downforce, and low downforce sets within the same iRacing folder. I don't remember how it is called, but it's something like iRacing setups or baseline setups, something like that. Up right corner inside the garage. And I was saying that high, medium, and down and low downforce setups are made by Fabio Bertolds, and those are great too. So especially with high downforce, this car basically 95% of the time runs high downforce. Even on this track, it's a high downforce setup. I know that some aliens are running medium downforce, but I tried that. I couldn't make it work. I'm just losing time and time during the braking zones because when you're medium downforce, you don't have stopping power basically, especially with this car. I'm running 54% brakes, 54.5.7 ish, something like that, on the brake bias with high downforce here, and I think I could move it a little bit more to the back. And with the medium downforce, I had to run 56.7, and still I didn't feel it was enough. So probably I didn't do a good setup for the medium downforce. I'm very much aware of that, but that doesn't change the fact that this car is so much better with high downforce. It will be fun to see what's going to happen at Monza, by the way. Anyway, so I was saying this is a modified version of my baseline. I did it like at the beginning of last week, so I don't remember exactly what I've done in detail. I remember that I've stiffened all the springs, so the car is, I think, one click stiffer, maybe 2 clicks. So it reacts faster and it can get into the corners faster, and it's more stable over the change of heights on the truck and the bumps. So I will post it anyway. So you will find the link in the description, or into the iRacing forums for the car. But anyway, let's go back to the tutorial. So we were saying you have to brake hard into turn 1 using this as a brake marker. You have to shift down into third. So when you start turning, you're already into third, and I'm still trail braking into the corner, but don't trail brake too much because this corner is kind of tricky because it's not this straight, the asphalt. So and it's pretty much, it's very tight. Also, look at where my hands are. So you don't want to trail brake them much, or maybe you want to be careful about that, especially if you're a beginner with the car. Don't ride the curb. just avoid it because you're all the way here and you don't want to upset the car. And the objective for this chicane is to get the car inside the corner as much as you can without compromising the speed. So you have more space. You see, I'm changing direction very late, so I'm all the way to the left. You're all the way to the left, and then you can have a very late apex here. What I was doing while I was a beginner, I see lots of beginners doing, is that they take this corner way too fast, so they end up being here. Okay, so they got this vector here, and they end up taking the apex here. So that means that they have a completely compromised exit on this corner, through this corner here. And you really want to remember that this car is great with high downforce. I say that like a minute ago. But the fact is that we're at 100 kilometers an hour, and there's basically no downforce here. There's just mechanical grip, and this car just completely sucks at mechanical grip. So don't expect that you can come off of this corner very easily. What you want to do, you're turning a lot. There's a little bit of a slope here. It's pretty much invisible to the naked eye, but I believe it's there. It's not really straight, this corner. And you're even worse, 90 kilometers per hour. And you basically want to start accelerating again. So just take it very carefully. You don't have to accelerate. You don't have to get out of this corner very fast, or this is not where you have to be quicker. You have to remember that basically this is where you want to be quicker. So you want to, if you have to learn something properly and focus on where to improving your lap times and your skills, this is where you want to improve, to brake as late as possible without compromising the entry for turn 2. So if you have to train here and try to push your limits here. But when you're here, you don't it's not like I'm going to push the throttle harder and the car will go and hopefully I will make it, because that's not gonna happen. What you want to do here is to exit the corner. You see I'm taking a very late apex here. Again, what I was saying before. Look where your hands are. This is full lock. This is full lock. You don't want to be reckless with the throttle, because the car will just go away. You lose the back. It's very easy to lose the back here. So what you want to do is just start applying the throttle very gently. I was explaining the Suzuka video, and I was explaining it in the on the forums, that I use kind of a mental trick here and doing the hairpins with this car, and I call it throttle staging. It's basically I section the hairpin in three parts, in three sections. So section 1 is when you reach the apex. So when you get to the apex, what you want to do is start applying the throttle again. You want to be very easy on that. You don't want to get away. You just want to gently raise the RPMs up, so the car becomes ready to leave the corner and to accelerate. And another reason I'm doing that is because if when you apply the throttle, at least with my setup, you start locking the differential. So by locking the differential, you start gaining understeer. Okay, so if I didn't accelerate at all here and just left the car and the differential in coasting mode, so without applying any throttle, the back will just start uh, being looser and looser and looser, and I will probably lose the back. So what I do here when I reach the apex, I just gently, just this is a tiny bit, I just put the foot on on the pedal. I just start accelerating again, and this is stage one. Stage two is when you start releasing your hands. So stage one is, let's say, under 50% of the throttle. Phase two is when you start opening up your hands, so you're getting closer to the exit of the corner, so you can turn up the engine and reach around 75% of the throttle. Okay, so look at my foot here, look at the hands. These two must be coordinated always when you're exiting a hairpin. Uh, what I'm doing is that the more I open my hands, the more throttle I'm inputting. So you really have to feel it with your hands. You would feel it with your back if you were in the car, but we're not in a real car, so you have to use the force feedback to understand where the limit is as much as possible and try to anticipate it to avoid losing time or spinning the car. But anyway, the more you open up your hands, and the more you can push the throttle. That's very basic. Okay, so the straighter the car is, the more throttle you can apply. As you can see here, now I'm third gear and I'm exiting the corner and I'm almost 100% of input, but now the car is straight, so I can just leave the corner. So 3 phases. Phase 1, again. Phase 1, when you touch the apex. So you touch the apex, you start applying the throttle very gently and calmly, and you wait the car to turn, because it's not you that is doing the corner, it's the car. So wait the car to turn, apply 25-50% of the throttle, and then stage 2 is when you're leaving the apex and reaching the exit of the corner. Then you start applying around 75%. And then when you're exiting the corner and your hands are straight and the car is straight, then you can apply 100%. And in this case, you're being helped by the fact that I was being helped by the fact that I was in third gear, low RPMs, so I had less torque, less power exiting the corner. And that's it. Of course, between the stages, they don't have to be, like closed rooms, closed boxes. You can still smooth the input, so you start accelerating more and more and more and more throughout the various phases. But the basic concept is that you have to be aware where in the corner you are, and thinking like, okay, I'm in stage 1, so I have to be here, and then I'm in stage 2, I can start applying more. So it's still a flow, it has to be a flow, but mentally you can think about it in 3 different parts. So we're exiting the corner. This was corner 2, and we're approaching kind of a straight. You want to reduce the road taken, and then we're heading into a very difficult chicane here, which is turn 3 and 4. What you want to do, use this marker here, but be aware that to brake over the marker will be very difficult. You can gauge this and see how close you can get to the marker without compromising the corner. But basically, what you want to do, and the objective for this turn, for this corner, is to get the car to turn in over this curb here. So you can really abuse this curb here. You see, I got on top of it. There's not a lot of troubles getting on top of it. But what you want to avoid is to use this curb here, because this is quite dangerous. And another thing that you want to be aware of is that there's a slope and a steep bump here, even if you can't really see it, maybe. But you see, did you see the car bouncing here? So the car here is bouncing. Maybe you can really see it. Here, pretty much here, the car is bouncing. So I'm waiting for the car to come down from this slope, so I can start opening the gas again. So what you want to do if you're a beginner with this car is to navigate through the corner, so don't miss the apex for no reason at all, and then start. You see, I'm at 50%, so I'm very careful. You move carefully through the corner, you navigate it, you just wait here. Again, this is a waiting game. This is not where you gain time. This is where you gain time. In the braking zone here, you can gain time if you're very good, but if you're at the beginning, just play it cool, play it safe, wait for the car to come off, apply just a little bit of throttle, don't overdo it, and then wait for the car to come over this slope here, this bump, and then when you're clear of the bump and of the wall and on the wall, and the car is straight again, then you can start applying throttle and full throttle again. So this is very important. Again, you brake here into third, you take the apex, you wait to come off the bump and the car to be straight, and then you can accelerate again. Follow this corner here. Don't try to squeeze the car too much towards the wall, because what I found out when I had a Logitech DFGT, which is a good starting wheel, but it's very weak with the force feedback. I'd say it's slightly weaker than the G27, G29. And then I bought Fanatec CSL Elite during we were running the MP430, the McLaren Formula One at Montreal during that time. So with the DFGT, I didn't know why, but if I got into the corner too tight, I was losing the back. So I had no feedback at all from the wheel. I was just turning, and then if I turned too much, the car spun, and it was just pretty much trial and error. But when I got the Fanatec, which has a much higher force feedback, I understood that the car is actually fighting to go outside, and if you really push, because it's not a direct drive, of course, but it's got some strength. So if you really push to pull the car towards the wall, the car will just lose it. So if you have a low strength force feedback wheel, just don't try to follow the wall at all costs. Just let the car go. You see, I'm keeping a constant angle on the wheel, so I don't strain the car too much. But anyway, this is full throttle, of course. And when you get here, you want to take this as your braking reference. And I'm in VR, of course, so I'm gauging the distances with my eyes because I got 3D vision. But of course, if you're on a monitor, you don't have that, so you have to find some other way. But still, this is a good point to gauge the braking zone. So it's somewhere before this place here, somewhere like this, you can say, maybe even later than this. You can do that if you're later in the session. You brake hard into third and then into second, and then you start turning. Don't overdo this curb here, don't abuse it, otherwise the car will start bouncing and it will be very hard to catch and you can lose it, or anyway lose time. And then you want to slide the car through this corner here, but again, you have to play safely. This is not the corner where you're going to gain time. This is the easier place where to gain time, this in the braking zone. From here on, you're just waiting. You turn the car in, and then you ramp up remember that you're in second gear and at 120 kilometers per hour, so you have to be very gentle, very careful, and try to keep the steering wheel as straight as possible while you're accelerating. And then what you want to do is short shift into third, so you lose torque, and it's more difficult to lose the car because you're applying less power to the back train. And at this point, you can start accelerating more confidently. So you see, I'm almost reaching 100%. I'm very much more relaxed while I'm in third. Of course, I don't just slam the throttle down, but I can ramp it up gently still, and then use the whole truck to leave the corner. So again, I'm even here. I'm trying at least not to anticipate the apex too much, because if I anticipate the apex, it will be harder to get out of this corner safely, because I will have to turn the wheel more and I will meet the wall earlier. So what you want to do again is to use this curb, try to use the whole truck, stay on the left as much as you can, and then cut the corner with a late apex here. So you will have more space here to accelerate and keep the wheel straighter. Okay, here you just want to reduce scrap, get the shorter way that you can, and we're getting at the I think Pont de la Concorde. No, that was Pont de la Concorde. We just done that, and we are turn 8 and 9, the third or fourth chicane in this track. They're basically all chicanes, pretty much. This is the bridge. What you want to do is you can take the shadow of the bridge or the beginning of the bridge, pretty much, as your braking mark. If you have a grippy truck and you feel confident, you can brake later, like halfway through the bridge. Otherwise, if you don't feel confident, you don't have a good braking pedal, a hardware pedal, you will want to start braking at the shadow, so at the beginning of the bridge. So basically, when you get here, you have to be very quick, because you brake really hard, you downshift fast. Try to use the whole truck available here, but don't do that too much, because you're gonna meet the grass here. So you can get a bit wider than the white line, so you have more space to get into the corner. So I was saying, you downshift quickly into third as quickly as you can, so that the engine will help you braking, and then you will have to, if you're going to brake in the middle of the bridge rather than at the beginning, you will have to trail brake very carefully into the first part of the chicane. I read on the forums that some people take the entry sausage here, the white sausage here. I don't, because I found out, at least for now, that I'm losing time, so I couldn't really find a way to make it work properly. So I would say just try to avoid it, but what you want to do is to take this apex as close as possible. So if you really have to choose which of the curbs to abuse, always abuse the first one. And instead, on the exit, you really just avoid it, otherwise the car will bounce and spin. This is guaranteed. This is a place where everybody spins all the time, because they get on the sausage exiting the corner. You're applying the gas, so you don't want the car to be unsettled, or it will go away. So again, the objective is to being able to take this corner comfortably but fast. So the car pretty much has to slide in here. You can see I'm actually accelerating already here. So you start applying throttle. Not much, I'm halfway through it, so I'm just, pushing the RPMs up. I'm not really pushing the car out of the corner yet. Remember this, because this is where you will spin if you're not careful. And then you can start accelerating if you feel confident you're not going to hit the wall. right here. Otherwise, you can start accelerating here. It should be easier, and you should have a straighter car. So again, here we're approaching the Lepingle. Okay, sorry, French friends, but I don't know how to say that. I will just say hairpin. Uh, I think this is one of the tighter hairpins and tighter corners we have throughout the calendar this season, and it's actually the first time I put the first gear with this car. So we're arriving here. We're in sixth gear, so we have to. Uh, if you follow the iRacing video tutorials, the basic tutorials, where they categorized the corners into like a corner that comes from a straight, and this comes from a straight, or a corner that goes into a straight. So this comes from a straight because you're in sixth gear and almost at top speed, and it goes into a straight. It's a very long straight. So what you want to do here is to brake as late as possible. So take this as a reference mark and start braking after this. And what you want to avoid, and this is, I have to say this is a mistake that I've done while I was practicing at the beginning as well. I wasn't sure I was doing the right thing, the thing that I'm going to explain to you now, but I've done some tests and I've seen that, at least for me, this is the quickest way around this corner here. And I think that in theory as well, I should be right, I think. But if I'm not right, just write it in the comments or on the forums and we can discuss it. So you're coming from a straight, so you want to brake as late as possible. So you want to really keep on using that speed, and you're going into a straight, so you want to start accelerating as soon as possible. So if you have to take an early apex here and follow the hairpin, you will lose a lot of speed. You would have to brake a much earlier to get into the corner, and then you would find yourself getting a bad exit because you will have to avoid the wall. So what I'm actually doing here is braking deep, okay, and pretty much how can I explain that to you? If this is the corner, okay, if you can follow the mouse, maybe it's clearer here. If this is the corner, okay, this is the corner. What I'm doing here right now is going straight, like on a triangle, going straight and then cutting here. So I'm using a lower speed through the corner, but it would be lower anyway because this is so tight. But I'm braking much later and I'm accelerating much later because now I'm turning the car, and the car it's much straighter than if I was here already on an early apex. So the disadvantage is that I am taking a slower corner, but that doesn't matter in this corner. And I am opening up to attacks on the inside, so people diving on the inside because I'm opening up the door. So remember that if you're in the race, you want to not take this line here, but you will want to take an early apex and close the door to any attack that you might have. So anyway, but if you're in qualifying or alone or under attack, what you want to do is brake late, get deep into the corner, then turn the car, and then start accelerating earlier on from the corner. So this is very extremized. Is that a word? Extremized. All right. It's an extreme that I'm doing here with the mouse. Of course, it's going to be smoother into the corner, but you have to understand that it's not like this, but it's like this. Okay. So let's watch the corner again. I'm coming here, braking much later than the 2 mark, so probably 1.5, pretty much here in the middle. I am braking hard, going back into second, and then even in first, I'm using trail braking, just a little bit of brake to help the car turning in. Okay, and then when I hit the apex, which is here, and it's like here and not here. You see the difference? It's here. So I'm hitting again the gas. Be careful. Okay, this is actually very difficult. It's a corner that is difficult for me as well. So you're in first, and you don't have to. You shouldn't consider first as a racing gear in this car. This should just be used at the start, and many of us are also using the launch control at the beginning. Just to understand how difficult it is to control the car on first gear. So keep that in mind, and remember that you're in first, you start applying gas, okay, and you short shift. Don't wait for the gear to be at the end, to be at full power, because full power in first is just suicide. So short shift, keep the car straight. As you can see here, I got a much better exit by using a late apex. And then you can start accelerating. If you're scared about using the first, you can still use the second, lose a bit of time there on the corner, but you will be much safer and you can reach the end of the race. That's the most important thing after all. Another thing, when you start accelerating here, keep the car smooth, because of course you're high on power and low on downforce. So what you want to do is to take it very easy here, exit very easy with the steering wheel. Look how little I'm using, and I'm using a fixed angle of the steering wheel. And when you get here, you get to the right side, okay, and you keep the car straight. So the car is as straight as possible. You don't have to correct. You minimize the scrub. You get probably a couple of kilometers per hour of top speed, and you can get better into the straight, which is very long. It's as long as the whole track. And we get to the Wall of Champion, to the very last chicane and corner for this track and this tutorial. We get to the second, to the mark number 2. This is our braking mark, and you will probably want to reach 70% of the distance from the first marker. The objective again is to brake really hard, downshift quickly into third, so that the engine can help us slow down and rotate the car, because of course the engine is slowing down the back train. So the back train is it's easier to lose a bit of grip from the back train. So it's basically like if you're trail braking into the corner, it's the same thing. And you're moving the weight, of course. So braking hard into third, and this you can see that from my delta, actually I'm 40 4 tenths down from my best lap, which was my previous attempt, I guess. No, maybe not. What I've done before was to, again, avoid using these white sausages. This is exactly what I was saying before for the other chicane with the white sausages. You have to avoid this. And I've left this this lap here. I wanted to use this lap here to actually show this. So I would have done 123 and 2-ish if I took this corner right, but I didn't. I went over the curb, and what happened is that the car started bouncing, at least with the set that I'm using. So look at what happened here. The car started bouncing, and I couldn't get back on the throttle because the car wanted to go down. It was pushing towards the outside, and I couldn't get back on the throttle because I had the wall and the car was bouncing, so I didn't feel safe about pushing the throttle, so I had to wait until I was very out of the corner. But what you actually want to do is to get into the corner, wait for the apex. I've turned I've braked way too soon and I turned in way too early. So you want to stay slightly outside so you don't take this white sausage, and then completely avoid this curb here. So try to stay as out as you can. Just try to take the red and white stripes, but avoid the white sausage at all costs. Because if you're bouncing, you can't accelerate. And when you're here, I should have been already at 75% of power. So you start accelerating basically when you get out of the first corner. Not by much, because you're still careful about not spinning, and but you're actually accelerating. While here I'm at 50%. I'm just waiting the car to come down and stop bouncing, and my line is completely destroyed because I could have come out of here and slot in perfectly after the tires here, the tires, the wall of tires here, and into the wall over the curb. But instead, I'm fighting the car against the wall of tires here, and finally I can open the gas again. And if you see here, I had an advantage of 4/10, and I've lost 30, almost 3/10, not 30, sorry, 30 cents, of course, but 3/10. So really, this shows you how uncool, at least with this setup, these white sausages are. So try to avoid them and keep the car down onto the ground. Keep the F duct sucking air from the bottom, so you got real cool vacuum under the car, and it stays planted onto the asphalt. All right, so we got to the end of the lap and of the tutorial. So thank you for staying with me so far, and enjoy this new season. Enjoy the races. Be safe and have fun. See you on track, guys.